in the House bill. By and large, the protest you saw by Blue Dogs, where Blue Dogs became angry, they threatened to kill the bill in committee. There were 7 of them in the Commerce Committee. They held the bill up for a long time, and then ultimately they got bought off, or they agreed to take some package of amendments, and those went in and they agreed to let the bill pass. They weren't invited into the room. So this bill was written by a pretty narrow group of the most liberal Democrats on the Commerce Committee and or in the House.
But do the congressmen actually write it?
Well, that's an interesting question.
Or do they hire Acorn people?
That's an interesting question, and I want to try to give you the answer. I don't know how much Mr. Waxman's staff, or Mr. Waxman, or Mr. George Miller's staff, who's the chairman of Ed and Labor, or Mr. Miller, or Charlie Rangel, or Charlie Rangel's staff actually wrote the bill. I do know that there's at least some evidence, some pretty significant evidence, that lobbyists for the insurance industry wrote parts of the bill. And I'll tell you why. I've told you that 70% of healthcare in America is governed by a law called ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. And I've pointed out that nowhere in the name of that bill does it say healthcare. It says Employee Retirement Income Security Act. Interestingly, that law was written in, I think, 1987 or 78. I'm dyslexic, whatever, one of the two. After it was written, the United States Supreme Court in a case called Pilot Life, in a decision written by Sandra Day O'Connor, whom I spoke to about this issue 2 weeks ago, ruled that if you get your health care from your employer under an ERISA-governed plan, and if that plan wrongfully denies you care, you cannot sue the plan for damages. Now, if your doctor makes a mistake, you can sue him for malpractice. And sometimes doctors make mistakes. You can sue him for malpractice. If his malpractice caused you to die, or your wife to die, or lose your sight, you can sue and you can recover. That's the system. Many of us think that that system gets abused, but probably none of us think that the law should be that a doctor can make any mistake he wants, kill you, and it's oh too bad. But the law in America today is that if an employer-provided plan, which is governed by this law called ERISA, makes a mistake or even intentionally denies you care that you're entitled to, you cannot sue and recover from them for the damages they caused. That is the law in America, and I think it's a moral outrage. I'll tell you a story. It's a woman who lived in Louisiana. She and her husband got pregnant. She got pregnant for the 2nd time. She went in for care, and her doctor said to her late in the pregnancy, you need to go to the hospital and remain there for the rest of your pregnancy. She went to the hospital and got to the hospital and applied to stay in the hospital, and United Healthcare said, no, I'm sorry, we don't think you need to be hospitalized. She talked to her husband, and she and her husband said, I don't think we can afford to pay for a healthcare stay of 2 or 3 or 4 weeks on our own at the cost of healthcare stays, so she went home. It's a true story. What's the name again?
Preeclampsia?
No. So she goes home and appeals the decision to United Healthcare. United Healthcare comes back to her and says, we will pay for a nurse to come to your home several times a week. The nurse will check in on you, but you just stay at home, you don't need to be in the hospital. She did that. Tragically, at a point when the nurse was not there, she went into labor, her baby went into distress, and her baby died. Mr. and Mrs. Corcoran, her name is Corcoran, it's Corcoran versus United Healthcare, and my office can give you a copy of the case. Mr. and Mrs. Corcoran hired a lawyer. The lawyer said, well, we don't want to sue your treating physician because he told you that if you weren't hospitalized, there was a good chance you would die or your baby would die. He turns out to have been exactly right. So let's sue United Healthcare. They're the ones that refused to hospitalize you. So they did. They filed a lawsuit against United Healthcare. In that lawsuit, they discovered something that had to have made them sick. They discovered that United Healthcare had had her medical records, which they had access to, reviewed by its own doctor. And United Healthcare's doctor said, the treating physician is exactly right. If she's not hospitalized, either she will die or her baby will die. So they were grossly negligent in denying her care because they ignored the advice of their own expert. And this is discovered in discovery. You know what the court ruled?
Nope.
We're terribly sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Corcoran, your baby is dead. But under pilot life and under this law called ERISA, you recover nothing for the death of your baby. Now, let me tell you one more thing that suggests to me the insurance companies, some of whom are supporting this bill, had a hand in writing this bill. You turn to page 30 minutes, but you deserve to know it.
Spend your time.
Huh?
Spend your time. It's already stayed over an hour. I got a comment I want to make that everybody else is love.
Very generous.
Where's your teleprompter when you need it?
Yeah, really. Yeah. Oh, you know what, James? It's the page you pulled out. Where's James? You turn to page, I believe it's 16 of the bill. 15 or, no, that's not right. James will find the page of the bill in a minute. In this bill, the ruling of ERISA, saying that insurance companies that sell ERISA plans are immune, is applied to employer-provided plans going forward. They extend the immunity that ERISA-based plans have when they make either a negligent or an intentional decision wrongfully denying you care. They extend that immunity to employer-sold health insurance plans into the future. And I confronted Henry Waxman about that. I don't know where the woman is that watched every minute of the market.
Right here. I remember.
I confronted Henry Waxman about that point. Henry Waxman turned as red as the red stripe on that flag because, I don't know if many of you heard it, but last week Mrs. Pelosi became livid with the health insurance industry. And she called them crooks, and she said they're evil, and she said we're going to destroy them. And their day of rule in America is over. In a bill where she cut what I think is a secret backroom deal to give them immunity when they kill or hurt somebody in insurance coverage denials going forward. So tell me that they didn't write that section of the bill.
That includes the federal government's health care plan.
No, actually the federal government health care, this is a sweet one. ERISA says that if you're a private citizen and you have an employer-provided plan and the ERISA plan wrongfully denies you care, you can't sue. If you're in a government-run health care plan, that's not governed by ERISA, and therefore you can sue.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Is that an outrage or what?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you bet.
We're very proud to have you.